Welcome to Conversations with Code Heroes. My name is Magdalena Woolery, and it is an honor and a pleasure today to have a very special code hero from Southern Africa, Noma. Noma, may I ask you to introduce yourself, please?
Thank you very much, Magdalena, for this event, for this action. We haven't had this. I mean, okay, I've been with the Breastfeeding People, organization for more than 40 years. So,
Wow.
But we've never had this opportunity of being interviewed, just to converse, not to talk about technical issues, talk about the things we do, things we've done to protect breastfeeding, to support the mothers. My name is Ma Nomajoni Ntombela. I'm usually called Noma, and most people, especially in Africa, I'm Ma Noma or Mama Noma. So almost everyone is calling me that. Yes, Mama Noma. So I'm a nurse midwife by training, but I've done a lot of work in maternal child health and in HIV and AIDS and name it as long as it's related to women and children. So I grew up all over the world because my father was an agronomist traveling. So we're traveling to other countries and everything at all. I'm born in South Africa, Eastern Cape, the poorest province in the in South Africa. But my parents migrated to Swaziland because of political issues. And then, of course, we stayed in Swaziland, remained in Swaziland. Though, of course, we were trained in South Africa for most of our age groups because there weren't any university or credible institution then in Swaziland. So I grew up in Swaziland. When I started work for IBFAN, I was working in Swaziland. I was the president of a local IBFAN group that was called Swaziland Infant Action Network, SINAN.
Wow.
Which, of course, we established with the help of Fiona Duby, who's now in UK. So those were the good days, and we really saw the need to establish the organization.
Yeah.
I also worked for an organization, Occupational Health Services, which was dealing with industries. And again, here, the working with industries was very important to protect the rights of the workers in the workplace, which we did a lot with the organization to promote that, and working and collaborating with government. I've got 3 children. They're all adults, married, and I've got 3 grandchildren. I'm very proud to say that they were exclusive breastfed. Wow. The first one was exclusive breastfed for 3 months. So for no reason, I stopped because I was not educated on these issues. And then we used to travel I lived at the border of Swaziland and Mozambique. So it was most rural. So we used to travel weekends to the city, Manzini, and stayed with friends. And the supermarkets were closing at 5 o'clock then. So we'd run out of infant formula. So the second one was accidentally exclusively breastfed for 6 months. So, and then the third one, a girl, they were also exclusively breastfed. So proudly, all my grandchildren were exclusively breastfed. The first one, which we experienced a very good one, was the mother went to UK for 10 days and there was enough express breast milk.
Wow.
So, and the current one is 5 months old. I'm keeping my fingers crossed. We're still exclusively breastfeeding. However, with challenges when they go back to work doing all that, it sounds easy when we talk about it, but practically, it's not that easy. The mother needs a lot and lots of support to make sure that the mothers feel comfortable and they know why they are expressing and what is the benefit to that.
Mama Noma, what are you most passionate about in IBFAN?
It's difficult to single out just one issue because they're all related. For instance, the code is very important, and it's more so important now with all the digital marketing and all that, which we sort of goes underground, we're not seeing its impact. So it has become very important. However, the issue of mothers, and not only mothers and families, empowering them, understanding why they must breastfeed. I think that is very important for people to counsel and support the mothers to understand why they must breastfeed. Once they know the benefits, they will also fight the evils and all the challenges and all the aggressive marketing that is there. But if they don't, so they can easily be discouraged. And also when they go back to work, strengthening maternity protection is important. So it's so easy to say, well, once you go back to work, you must express, you must do all that. But mothers are faced with many challenges. And you find that the government, their policies, for instance, I take South Africa, there's a policy of when the mothers go back to work, it's mandatory that they have breastfeeding breaks.
Yeah.
1 hour, 30 minutes, okay, they could negotiate with the mother, but the employers and the employees themselves don't know about that. So that's why I'm saying it's difficult to say which part of it I'm passionate about it, but the whole issue. And I remember when we had HIV, when the HIV started, it was so difficult. And I'm so proud of ourselves and all the world when we stood first and then promoted breastfeeding, because today, even for HIV positive mothers, they're now encouraged to exclusively breastfeed, and they are doing it.
Yeah.
And there are less babies that are converting, but it's a continuous struggle. So it continued. You have to fight it. You have to be resilient. You have to humble yourself, talking to the people. And you come across many challenges and difficulties. Even the other people too, the mothers and the grandmothers, there's a lot of pressure from the grandmothers. Oh, I did this to your husband or your wife and so on. Bottom line is that we are encouraging mothers. I'm passionate about encouraging mothers to breastfeed. I always laugh in South Africa. I've gotten a good number of people, even in Swaziland, Zambia, because when I was with IBFAN, I was covering the whole region, English and Portuguese speaking countries. So I've got all the Magdalenas there and so on. So now I've got even the younger one, the grandchildren, as you say, that are supporting this need in a different way now. The approach is different, and that's what is also important, to be adaptable. Yeah. So that we don't sort of, the old people said, oh, this is how we do it. We want it to be done like that. No, that's not the way to go. Yeah. It's important that we listen and then we learn and then we adapt if we want to survive here, because the industry is on us. Yeah. And all the naysayers are there and discouraging mothers knowingly or unknowingly. Yeah.
There's so many challenges, but I'm really interested, Mama Noma, about your experience during the HIV situation there in Southern Africa and your work protecting breastfeeding for the mothers. Could you just tell us a bit about that?
Okay. I think so. Just at that time, in fact, I remember in Swaziland, we were the first organization, an NGO, NPO, this occupational health service, to diagnose an HIV positive person. So I remember very well, because we were doing annual medicals or pre-employment medicals. So this gentleman came in for a medical and he said, okay, I'm losing weight and I don't know why. So we did all the tests, they were negative and everything else. He came back and he said, what if it's HIV? And we said, oh yeah, it could be, right? Let's do the test. We randomly did the test with no counseling because we didn't know much about HIV deaths in the early 80s. So we just did the test and voila, the test came back positive. Wow, that was a shock. So then we started counseling the person and all that. There were no drugs then, remember? So it was just good nutrition and so on. And then fast forward, I worked for an organization, a PEPFAR organization that is Academy for Educational Development in US. So I moved from Swaziland, I went to US to work with the organization. So one of the objectives was to integrate HIV into breastfeeding or into infant and young child feeding. So we had a demonstration project. We started in Zambia, in one of the districts in Ndola. So we're working with the primary health care. You know, at the beginning of HIV, as you know, if you're in Botswana, so the testing was only done at tertiary level. So this was the first project that was established and implemented at primary health level. So we're training people how to do the testing, HIV testing at primary health care level, and also integrating nutrition. It was a war because the prevention of mother-to-child people did not like the issue of breastfeeding. They wanted to say, okay, let's just replace breastfeeding with infant formula. So being that, so we had to fight for breastfeeding to be there. And then, you know, people say, oh, babies are dying because they're getting infected because of HIV, and they're dying because there was no research at that time that was done. But fortunately, our project prevailed because later on it was replicated in other countries like in Tanzania, Kenya. It's only Botswana we didn't go there, Namibia, and all the other countries. So we were so happy. I know the first research that was done in Zambia, they were exclusively breastfeeding up to 4 months, and then stop and abrupt stopping of breastfeeding, and then giving infant formula and other products. And the children died, the truth is. And we were there, we're saying, and monitoring, watching what is happening. And the children were dying. It was later on when they sort of agreed that, no, this is not a good thing. And then the same, like in South Africa, we struggled because the government was giving free infant formula to all the HIV positive mothers. It took a long time, and a lot of people like Dr. Nigel Rawlings, we worked with him, and Professor Anna Kostudis, who stood by us on saying infant feeding, breastfeeding is the core. So today, what are we getting? So I think we achieved, but it was difficult. We stood by our objective, and I think we've won.
The children that abruptly stopped breastfeeding at 4 months, they didn't die of AIDS, right? It was diarrhea, respiratory.
Diarrhea, yes, diarrhea, respiratory infections, and you remember even the Botswana study.
Yeah. And
yes, even the
really...
Botswana study, we use that Botswana study a lot to motivate for the other countries. That's, look here, Botswana, with all the good economy, well-run facilities, but the children are dying.
Yeah,
of diarrhea. And there was that time period where there was a lot of deaths and all that. So that helped us a lot. And that's where we liked the IBFAN or work, because we're collaborating with all these IBFAN groups in countries and working with the governments themselves. And then we were always at their meetings. For instance, Eastern, Central, and Southern Africa, there's an which the ministers of health would meet and then discuss these issues. And we're always there to say, remember the issue of breastfeeding.
Yeah, because breastfeeding, you mentioned Botswana, over 500 babies died during one diarrhea outbreak, and they were all formula fed. The babies that were breastfed, they got sick during the diarrhea outbreak, but they all survived. And I think it's a really, it's so heartbreaking. However a baby feeds when they die, it's just heartbreaking. But the babies that suddenly stopped breastfeeding at 4 months and were given formula, they didn't die from
HIV, yes. Yeah,
They
because
died
they were not
something else.
infected. Yeah, exactly. The same as in Kenya, if you remember the study that was done by Professor Ruth Ndwati. So where she compared breastfed children up to 18 months and those that were infant formula. Those that were in infant formula had more episodes of diarrhea, pneumonia, and they were dying compared to those that were infected but breastfeeding.
Yeah.
So I think those studies, the Kenya one, the Zambia, and the Botswana, were the turning point where countries realized this. However, South Africa was slow in doing that until 2011. It was 2011 when South Africa stopped the distribution of free infant formula.
Okay.
And then one of the provinces initiated this where Dr. Nigel Rawlings and Anna Kostood working in KwaZulu-Natal, they initiated the stoppage of infant formula distribution and then the country forward. So, and then that was in 2011. So you can imagine from the 80s,
wow,
South Africa was one of the countries that initiated prevention of mother-to-child transmission, did testing at tertiary level, but mothers were encouraged not to breastfeed.
Yeah,
it's a battle. It is even today. Some of the health professionals still not convinced that this is, but it's a policy. Now there's nothing they can do.
Yeah. Did you find that the companies sometimes were behind the continuation of giving formula or pushing that, lobbying for that?
Of course, they did. Whenever we did training for infant and young child, they would be having their own training next door, or whatever meeting next door where we were training. And then there was a lot of lobbying there, talking to governments, offering free infant formula, or they say you pay for 50% and then we give 50%. So yes, the companies were aggressive, and some of the companies, if you remember, they were establishing, I must correct myself on this, HIV clinics. Wow. So it was attractive. It was attractive to politicians and to ministers of health, because here is this. Even Botswana, I remember even Botswana. So there's a famous professor who was advocating for this at international meetings, or regional meetings. It was war, because the breastfeeding people it was like they were against the PMTCT people, which was not the case. But look at what they even adapted their code. They removed all those articles that related to infant formula, stopping infant formula distribution. But now they had a case against that professor, which is very interesting.
Yeah, I was there in Botswana at the time.
Yes.
That's
yes. So
the challenge, just for child survival is huge. So I salute you for protecting the babies and the long journey, a big fight. So, but it's amazing.
Yes, it is a long journey and a big fight. And I always believe when you talk about the heroes, I first said heroes. But when I think about it, because they say a hero is someone who fought for the voiceless, so all those people that don't have their voice and means. And then what is important is that you don't get defeated. You return home.
Yeah.
Successful.
You're a hero.
Yeah, but it's not easy.
No. And
it's still not easy. There's poor resource funding for infant feeding, for breastfeeding. Even now with the World Health Assembly targets of 2025, but there's no money put into that to make sure that mothers continue to breastfeed. There's this little understanding of what is support for breastfeeding means. It's like if you say it is going to happen, but it's not like that. Mothers also get this pressure too, same as the health professionals.
Yeah. Let's if someone watches this and they want to support IBFAN Africa and support your work, Mama Noma, they can send donations. Maybe later
Definitely.
at the end, I will add a contact at the end of the video, and
yes,
people can donate to IBFAN Africa.
And not to forget the COI component part of it, so that it shouldn't be anybody. I know the industry will
yes, we
yes,
will add. Yeah,
yes.
IBFAN does not take money from child feeding companies and so on. We'll add that.
Yes.
But I think,
and we also, the advantage if the regional office gets funding, it could be funding for the region, and then we share with some of the countries. Not that, because we are coordinating, providing technical assistance, we also share the resources if we have resources and share with the groups, because what we need to do now, we need to strengthen the national groups to make sure that they conduct the monitoring of the code, so that it's at least the monitoring of the code is free from industry.
Yep. Wonderful. Talking about heroism, I heard that in Swaziland there were some heroic actions from Code Heroes. Could you tell us the story?
Wow, yes, that was an interesting story and hard at the time. So we had on the news, the IBFAN group, we had on the news that there's a company that is going to establish a factory to manufacture baby food. So way on below, behold, someone who suppose we knew what we were doing sort of pushed a proposal for these people under my door in the office. It was well written, and it was going to be a regional approach, because they'd done a lot of research. They knew exactly how many babies in the SADC region are born a year. So if then this factory is established in Swaziland, it will be able to supply the other provinces. Remember, at that time, South Africa was still under the apartheid, so most of the things were happening in the free states, in the different states. So we approached the Department of Trade and Department of Health. The health minister at that time was a business person who understood the business things. He said, but you look here, guys, this is business, is going to create jobs, and what is your problem? And we said, yes, but the problem is how many babies are dying because of this. So if you look at it from that perspective, and from the business perspective, the country is not going to benefit anyway, because they're only going to employ 20 people. So remember, and it was a high-tech process that was going to process this food. So really, as far as employment, it was not going to benefit. These were the 20 casual workers. All the technocrat work was going to be done by these people. So we had to convince the politicians and the parliament. So fortunately, both ministers listened, and then that was halted, and it never took place. So that was, and some years back, I learned they even had problems with that project. So we were very happy to do that. And also we're the first one, in fact, I was the first one to ask the analysts in ICDC to train lawyers. We sent our first lawyer from Swaziland, who was so motivated, to Penang to be trained in the code issues. So we did a lot, and even at the World Health Assembly, just that, as you know, the heroes are not, always remembered, but we don't mind working at the background as long as we meet our objectives.
Yeah, it's amazing. And you made such a great case against the business argument, because like you said, only 20 local people from Swaziland would have benefited from that. And weren't they going to recruit people from the US or the?
Yes, because usually the projects that come with their expertise to train local people. But when you read the proposal itself, it was not saying that, compared to the government policy that, okay, when you bring in a project, you've got to people, the local people, to understand the aspects so that when the project closed down, they continue that. But it wasn't there in the proposal. And years down the line, so the minister who was at trade was transferred to health. And I met him in World Health Assembly. He said, whoo, thank you very much. I'm sure I would be embarrassed if I'd allowed this at that time, because now she was with health, going to World Health Assembly, understanding these issues. So
it's amazing because that's huge. That's the production of formula, right?
Yes.
And how many babies in Swaziland would have died from the unethical marketing? You just shut it down.
And in the region, remember, because they'd done their research in the region, they were going to export this to the region.
Wow. Oh my goodness, I didn't realize that. That's huge, Noma. That's really amazing. And I'm so glad that you have shared that story with us. And that money, though, would have gone back to the US, right? To the company, the wealth generated.
Exactly. That was our argument, that all this money is going to US.
One last question, Mama Noma. Any words of wisdom or advice that you have for young people that want to be a code hero, want to join IBFAN? Any wisdom, advice you'd like to share, knowing what you know now?
Okay, yeah, I think that is a very important question and so critical, because we want this work to continue. And mind you, we also took us from the other heroes like Margaret Kienka Isabire and Ellen Armstrong, who first opened IBFAN Africa in Nairobi. So we learned from them, and then they passed all the knowledge to us. So it's so important for us now to pass the knowledge to the young people, because otherwise all the efforts will be worthless if we don't pass that. But it's so important for the young people to be committed. All you need is to be committed. You know your objective, what you want to achieve, and sacrifice. It's a lot of sacrifice, because usually it's a lot of voluntary work. It's a lot of hard work over weekends, 24/7. You've got to only look at, especially now that the industry is really up in arms. And I always say, for us in Africa, it's like we are fighting with the spears and people who are fighting with guns. How do you do that? It's just need resilience, commitment, courage, and be able to committed to doing that. So I think that is very important. And we need the young generation, them with knowing the technology. I think for them, things are going to be better than us, hopeful.
Wow.
Yes. We're there to support the young ones and make sure that the legacy continues. So it may not be in our lifetime, but it must happen. The babies must be free from this infant formula and promotion. The mothers, poor mothers that are sort of confused.
Yeah. Wow.
Yes.
You are so inspiring, Mama Noma. Look, I don't know if you can see my hairs on my arm. And
thank you very much. You're already a young hero. You're on there. You're following the other heroes, so we can just go.
Yeah, to inspire other young people. I mean, if you have mentors like Mama Noma, it's so wonderful to learn from the experience and that guidance. So such a blessing. I love you. We're so grateful for you, and
love you too.
What an honor for us as well to listen to your stories, your courage. And it's been a real pleasure to honor you as well. And thank you.
Thank you so much to you too.
Love
So
you.
because the undocumented stories, no one knows about it. So for you to document it, it's wonderful and great.
Yeah.
So hope it's not going to discourage the young ones. It will encourage the young ones to take on the spear and fight, even if they don't have guns. They will succeed.
I'm just so touched by your heroism. You know, it takes real courage, resilience, and you're a true hero, Mama Noma. And I'm so grateful for this interview. And I want everyone to watch it because
and we also had support from other people. That is very important. The support we get from other people and other heroes, and work together. This collaboration, working together is critical, because alone we are not stronger. Okay, thank you. Luta, continua.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much.